Hey everyone, my name is Hamilton. I'm a film and alt process photographer. This channel is all about film photography, alt process photography, and tips that I can give to you to make sure that your photography work turns out great. Today's video is going to be a little bit different though, because we're not taking a look at any film camera tutorials or tips on unloading film or anything like that. We're going to be taking a look at the creative slump and also imposter syndrome. These are topics that are very close to me because they affect me. I think they affect a lot of creative people out there. And so I just want to kind of run down sort of my tips that I use whenever I hit that creative slump, or whenever I feel like I just, what am I doing? This is not good. I should stop shooting film. I should just stop being a photographer. I think we've all felt like that. So these are my sort of go-to methods that have really helped me out, and I hope they help you out because it's an awful feeling. It really is an awful feeling when you hit that slump and you don't know what the heck to do. And especially if you're shooting film, you don't want to waste money just shooting, nothing. And both of these things, the imposter syndrome and creative slump, can really paralyze you. They can make you feel like you just need to hang up your gear. So if you've ever felt like you're burned out or you're just not good enough, this video is for you. I'm really hoping these tips can help you out as much as they've helped me out. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Creative slump and the imposter syndrome kind of go hand in hand. That's why I decided to make sort of one video to tackle both. Let's go ahead and take a look at the creative slump and what I do to kind of pull myself out of there. And that will kind of lend itself down into the imposter syndrome. We can take a look at that. So first things first, the creative slump. It sucks. It is absolutely awful. I think we've all felt it. I don't know any artist that has never been in a creative slump. And it's one of those things, like I said, especially if you're shooting film, where every time you press the shutter, that's money. That's money that you're spending. It can be very, very crippling. So the number one tip that I have for you guys, if you ever find yourself in that creative slump like we all do, is to look at work. Look at all sorts of work out there. I mean, we live in an age where it's so easy to we're almost like inundated with just photographs everywhere, right? So make sure you're following photographers that you admire, make sure you're following photographers that you look up to and that inspire you, because that's the first place I go to. I go to see what other photographers out there are doing, and seeing if any of their work kind of triggers anything in me. Now there's a phrase that gets tossed around a lot, and I think it has sort of a negative connotation. I don't think of it as a negative connotation, and that phrase is steal like an artist. What does that mean? Now, I'm not telling you to go out there and you see someone's doing this really crazy shoot with I don't know, bird's wings, right? Let's just say they're using bird's wings for whatever thing. I don't want you to just start using bird's wings in your photographs. That's not what I mean. What I mean is you go and you look at all this work, and you need to make sure that you're kind of plucking out ideas and thoughts from this work, from multiple pieces of work, not just one artist, and you're taking all these ideas and you're blending it into your own body of work. This is something that takes a little bit of practice, I think, but it's something that's incredibly helpful. Steal like an artist, right? I'll talk about my own work to start things off. I use a television a lot. I use an old TV. And the reason I do that is because it reminds me of my childhood. It's very nostalgic for me. And so it's a symbol in my work. I'm usually carrying it, sometimes it'll be just sort of a prop in the scene. So if I was trying to be inspired and I was looking at my work, I might be like, okay, a TV, that's a cool idea. Maybe I don't use a TV. Maybe I used, a boombox. Maybe I use a projector. Maybe I use something else, some sort of other item from my childhood that gives me that feeling. Or maybe I do use a TV. Maybe I use a TV, but instead of having it in the scene, maybe I'm wearing it, So that's what I mean when I say steal like an artist. Don't just see the TV and start putting in your scenes with no reason. Take that idea of the TV and let it take you on your own journey. Another example is, so you have the TV idea from me, you see another artist that's using, cyan gels in their work. So now it's like, okay, they're using cyan gels. That's really awesome. Maybe I use, magenta gels in my work. So now I have this TV idea, I've got the magenta gels. I'm just pulling from other artists. I'm stealing from other artists to make my own sort of narrative, to make my own piece. That's what I mean when I say still like an artist. You're plucking out thoughts and ideas and just blending it into your own composition. I think people get kind of miffed at this when I suggest this, but you're not taking their work, right? You're using it to inspire your own work. And I think that's the best way to get out of the creative slump, is to look at these people that are inspiring you, things in their work that are driving you to shoot and to become a better photographer. But the trick, and I want to stress this, do not steal work, do not steal other people's work. The trick is to make it your own. See those things, blend it together, and have it inspire your own thought process. Make it your own, right? Make it your own. The other thing I would recommend is make sure to read books. Lots and lots and lots of books. I can't stress this enough. We live in an age where reading is not nearly as popular as it used to be, and that's a real shame. That's a great shame, because I think you get a lot from reading a lot of photography books. I think you get a lot from reading these sort of technical photography books, especially because you learn new tricks. You learn tricks and tips that again will inspire you to go out and try to do the same thing, But you start doing the same thing and it just kind of becomes your own. One of my favorite photography books is written by the photographer Nick Fancher. Absolutely brilliant guy. I love his work. I love these books. Highly recommend them. Whenever I'm in a rut, I'll just go down to my little library, pull out some, flip through for some ideas, flip through to learn a new technique, and it gets me right back on the path. So I'll put a link to his books below, but yeah, I can't recommend these books enough. They are absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So not also should you just be reading, photography, technical books, but you should also just be reading in general. Read some fiction, read some nonfiction, read things that inspire you. When you fill yourself with that creative energy, it sort of stays within you and kind of bubbles to the surface. So think of yourself like a car, and you want to fill yourself with like the gas of creative energy. That sounds an awful analogy, but you guys know what I mean. And so you just fill yourself to the brim with all these things, not just books, movies, television, video games, all this creative stuff just goes inside me and just simmers around until it just explodes out of me. And so do that. If you're ever in a slump, watch TV. And I know that sounds so counterproductive, but if you watch things that inspire you, and maybe that's the trick, right? You need to find shows and movies and video games that inspire you creatively. And so yeah, I'll pop on, trash TV every once in a while just to sort of, veg out, but I'm probably not going to do a photo shoot inspired by The Bachelor. That's probably just not going to happen. So make sure that you're watching things or reading things that have that sort of creative energy that you admire and that you aspire to recreate, basically. Go back through your old notebooks. Are you keeping a notebook? You should definitely be keeping a notebook. I have multiple notebooks of just all my photography ideas, all my, script ideas, or any sort of creative thing that pops into my head during the day, I'll write down in a notebook. And the reason I do this is because I'm going to forget it. I'm going to come home, it'll be late at night, and it's just going to go out of my head. And it's kind of wild to me when I'm flipping through notebooks from like 5 years ago. I'll just have something written in the margin, like, I'll go back to the TV idea where it was like, old TV childhood. Like that was in the margin of a book, and I was like, hey, let's bring that back. Let me explore that idea a little bit more. So make sure to keep notebooks of your ideas, even if it sounds like the dumbest thing. If it pops into your head, if it kind of triggers, that little feeling, that little chime feeling inside of you, if it triggers that, make sure to jot it down. You don't have to do anything with it right away. I think a lot of artists get sort of inundated with all these ideas assaulting them at all times. I do too. So just keep a notebook of them, because you'll go back through them and I think you'll be surprised at how often you'll see an idea from years ago and be like, that's the one. That's what I need to focus on to get me out of this slump. So make sure to keep notebooks and also to read through them again, because I think some people will just keep a notebook but not read it again, and that kind of defeats the purpose. And also just look at your old photographs. Oftentimes I will go through old series of photos. I might have done a shoot that just kind of got pushed to the backlog because I had a whole bunch of other things going on and I forgot about the shoot. You can even be inspired by your own work. So make sure that you're going through old photographs. And again, I mean, I think one of the best ways to do that is to print your work, but if you don't want to spend money on ink and paper and all that, make sure you have your Lightroom set up so it's easy to navigate through and you can sort of see your body of work and just sort of be inspired by your own thing. And I know that sounds a little crazy too, to be inspired by your own work, but again, I think you'll be surprised by how often you'll see an old set that you didn't think was that great, but there's something there that triggers something inside of you that gets you to do the second version of that set, basically. That happens all the time to me. So make sure that you're looking through your old work as well. So the downside to looking at all this brilliant work out there, you're looking at this photographer, you're looking at that photographer, and you're trying to get inspired, is that oftentimes it sort of triggers this imposter syndrome inside me, at least. And I'm assuming it's going to trigger that inside you as well. Because you look at this and you're like, there's no way I can do this. There's no way I can be that photographer, that I can be that good. Why am I even doing this if I can't hit that mark? And I get that, and that feeling sucks. I hate that feeling. I hate it. But it happens. That's a part of sort of what we're dealing with in this day and age, is that we see so much brilliant work out there that it kind of pushes us to the background. It makes us feel less than. And it's awful, and it's almost worse to me than a creative slump, because I don't know, it's paralyzing. I mean, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just talking to myself here. And again, imposter syndrome, talking to myself here. But that feeling right there is so paralyzing to me. So I've found certain ways to combat that, and it's helped me out. I hope it helps you guys out. So let's sort of dive into that. So the first thing that I'm going to tell you is this: at least you're making something. Let that sink in for a minute. You are creating something. You are creating something that didn't exist before. You are putting something new out into the world, and that is absolutely brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. You need to see that for what it is that you are creating work into a world. You are making something and putting it out into the world, and that is brilliant and deserves to be recognized for what it is, which is fantastic. So good on you. Always think about that. Always think about, hey, I'm making something that didn't exist before. I'm putting something fresh out there. I'm putting something new out into the world that wasn't there. And I think that gets lost. I don't think we think about that enough. The very act of taking that photo, we're freezing time, we're making something immortalized. That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. So keep that in the back of your head whenever you feel that imposter syndrome, because it's so easy. It's so easy to just do nothing. Doing nothing is the easiest thing in the world. It's so easy and seductive to do nothing, to put down the camera and say, why? What does it matter? No one's going to look at this. What does that matter? But it does matter. I'm telling you, it matters so much. So please make sure to keep that in your mind. You're creating something instead of doing nothing. I've kind of summed it all down into this phrase that I like to use, which is persistence over talent. When I first started off in photography, that was one of the things one of my mentors told me. He said, Hamilton, persistence over talent, always. Those people that are out there creating works of art are going to be seen, basically. And so keep that in the back of your mind. Keep that in the back of your head when you're shooting. Persistence over talent. It doesn't really matter how talented you are. If you're making work and putting it out there, chances are it's going to get seen. So don't let those brilliant pieces of work kind of bring you down. Just make sure that you're creating work and you're continuing on your journey and you're putting work out there. Persistence over talent, always. And really, don't be ashamed, guys. Do not be ashamed if you feel this way. Do not be ashamed if you feel like you're in a creative slump that you can't get out of, or you have this sort of imposter syndrome taking over. Don't be ashamed of it, because we all feel it. I feel it. I feel it all the time. I feel it with this YouTube channel especially. Who's going to listen to me? What's the point of doing this? But I do it because I feel like I have information put out there and it wasn't out there before. I'm making something and putting it out into the world. So keep that in the back of your mind as you move forward. And I hope it helps. I hope this video helps you the same way that these sort of tips and tricks have helped me. If you have tips and tricks that are specific to you, that have helped you, please feel free to drop them into the comments below. I think this is something that isn't talked about quite often, and I think it's something that's very real and should be talked about. So if you're comfortable, please feel free to drop some tips and tricks in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of this video. I hope it's helped you. And as always, guys, please just remember, the darkroom isn't dead.